We are having significant issues globally in the financial and political system. You can see this now escalating as more and more debt is piling up, choking all of the countries one by one. The weaker countries are falling first, but that will not exclude anyone, because even what the countries recognize as the stronger countries are becoming weaker as the days go on. Let's get into the news right away. What is the world investing in? And you can see back in 1990 and 1992, you had about 19% of that in finance. So if you fast forward to the 2010 to 2012, you're looking at 30% of the investment. So that makes a big difference when you're investing in lots of these financial, they call them assets, but I would call them gambling. And essentially what we have is a lot of asset-backed securities, collateralized debt obligations, and so on and so forth. Let's go into what this means. S&P warns Athens nearing default again. And this is brand new information. Yes, of course, they had received multiple bailouts and undoubtedly will need to continue on that for the foreseeable future. This is what happens when you have a system that chokes the country. They set up austerity, and it is pretty obvious that the purpose of the IMF is undoubtedly to strangle the country and steal their assets. So let's get into what I wrote about in my book. You may have seen this before. Essentially what I said specifically, to quote, a second round of bailouts for Greece is needed. And this was obviously written prior to that second bailout. And I also said it just wasn't enough. It will continue. And also, I talk about here the IMF intentionally creating a situation that the country cannot pay back. They create terms that they know specifically they can't pay back. In order to do this, they then sell off the assets of that country to the super elite individuals. It is quite a crime, and this has been going on all around the world in different countries, one by one, and the countries are fighting them off in many cases, but they eventually lose that battle in most times. And that is quite sad news to hear. Putin rules out capital controls as Russian outflows grow. This is what the currency war is all about, and currency games that they play out of Bloomberg here, talking about what Putin said. Though he did say that we don't plan to introduce currency restrictions or restrictions on the movement of capital. But you know, it is quite interesting that you often have them say they're not going to do something right after they intend on undoing it. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that. But it is quite interesting to watch what's happening out of Russia, and particularly at the same time, you know, because they are putting these sanctions on Russia, and it is quite crippling to the economy in many ways. But Putin is definitely suggesting that nothing is happening at the moment. We'll see what has to happen. Only time will tell. And then we go into this 1938 cost of living. Because all of these games that they're playing with the sanctions, with the bailouts, with the bail-ins, of course, these are all games they're playing with a currency. And we know undoubtedly that a currency is devalued over time. Why? Because they're set up in such a way that they need to print more and more money, causing this debasement of the currency. All of the empires have done this. Rome did it, Athens did it, and everyone else had done it because they get greedy. They take their gold coins and they water them down with copper and cheap metals, and of course it debases the coinage. That's what they did. They're doing the same thing now. Look at this 1938 cost of living, and just, you know, some amazing things. A new car, $860. Average rent per month is $27. Now that's a dinner at a half decent restaurant, and a movie ticket 25 cents each. I mean, you're talking about so far gone, it's a joke at this point. This is out of Street Talk Live, showing you the economic versus earnings growth projections versus reality. I just wanted to show you this. Look at the financial crisis bubble, how the estimate trajectory financial crisis, how that was going up. They said, look, this is going to go booming forever and ever. And of course, a large spike downward. And look at the estimate trajectory currently taking place. That's on the right. You can see the red dotted line where they're estimated to go. And based on what I've seen historically, the quicker it escalates, the quicker the collapse will be, the more violent the collapse will be. It's going to be very deep, and you can see that taking place right now before our very eyes. If they do increase interest rates, if they do actually pull out of the system and allow that crutch to be taken out, you're going to have a big, big fall. And this right here is something that, I mentioned at the beginning, jobs added by industry. And you can see this, professional business services, a lot of the temporary help. That is the primary source of the jobs that are being added. This is all false. Look at how terrible this is when you're having these individuals who consistently need to reapply for positions, and they do this intentionally so that the job numbers, they continue to say, we have created 100,000 new jobs this month, 100,000 new jobs this month. And then they consistently say this only because they're continuously firing and rehiring people. That's the way they play these games. Where's the money going? It's going into things like this. This is something about the war, and I just wanted to mention this, that Obama said specifically, look, we are going to take every single precaution not to kill innocent civilians. And then they later state, the Obama administration admits that for what they're doing with Iraq and Syria to kill ISIS, they are not going to apply that policy. They're just going to go ahead. And of course, they already found out that they've murdered innocent civilians. And this is terrible. This is exactly what our money is going to be used for consistently. The military-industrial complex owns all of this, and they need to create havoc in these countries to have a reason for the public over here to be in fear. That's how this works. If you found this informative, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free. That's available at themoneygps.com. Scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you'll get occasional emails from me.